Hey everybody, what's up? This match is against a fairly tight player, but he will two-barrel in certain spots. It's got some interesting situations that come up, so I hope you enjoy it. Alright, start of the match, as usual, just trying to get a feel for my opponent. And 8-4 suited, he limps. And I hit a 4 on the flop. I'm always going to bet out in this situation just to test him, see if he raises me straight away, see if he folds, see if he calls. Flat call, 80 in the pot. The 9's not a good card for me, really. I mean, it's if he's been calling on anything like sort of Queen Jack or Queen 10 or sort of, a whole bunch of hands, that will give him more outs. And I'm pretty happy to give this up at this stage. I just bet 20 to see what happens. Obviously check the river. And he called me down on middle pair. So the first thing that I'm thinking is he might be relatively tight. And the reasons that I say that, he didn't raise pre-flop. Now obviously Queen 8's not a good hand, but an aggressive player is going to raise pre-flop on pretty much any two cards at the start of a match. Second of all, he hit middle pair, didn't raise me, just flat called me, and just checked down the river, so my thinking is tight at this stage. Alright, I limp, he doesn't raise me, and here he makes an overbet into a 40 pot, he bets 50. That looks very, very suspicious to me. I'm going to call this and see what happens on the turn. And now he checks on the turn. And this just seems like such a donkey line to overbet the pot, then check the turn. There's no way I can get him. I can sort of let him get away with that. So I bet, and he gives it up for 40 into 140 pot. So obviously he bluffed the flop there, and perhaps my my original thought that he's tight is off base, or perhaps he's simply tight with spewy moments. So we'll see how the match progresses. Alright, I bet out at the paired board. He flats me, and 20 on the turn. Not really sure what that's about. I find the bet of 20 on the turn more of a worry than if you'd bet sort of 80 or something. I mean, it looks either like he's a really weak player or he's got a really strong hand. There he raises me pre-flop. I'll fold. 10-2. He hasn't been too active. I'll have another crack at this one, and he folds. So I think so far my sort of pot stabbing has sort of worked okay, but not brilliantly. Obviously I'll keep it up and see how I go. 75 into a 40 sort of pot. Last time he did this it was a bluff, but with the board so connected, the problem is if I raise him here I might not be able to get him to fold a bluff. So for example, if he's got a 2 or a 5 or a couple of spades or whatever, if I try and raise him knowing that he's probably weak, he might call for the bluff value, and I'm then putting myself in a very marginal situation. My read is that he's weak, and I could go with it, but on the other hand I don't have any real reason to go with it. So I'll just go on to the next hand. I don't need to win every pot, even though I think he's weak and I can probably take it down. I'll just wait for a better spot. Alright, ace 10, I'm limping. Pretty horrible flop. And ace on the turn, he bets 20 into it. Looks weak to me. I'm just making a little raise and he gives it up. So, although he appears relatively tight from the fact that he's not raising much pre-flop and he's letting me limp, he is sort of spewing out of pots now and again. So I'll be looking to take advantage of that in the right spot. Alright, middle pair, I get called, and 120 in the pot, 2 overcards, and I've got a terrible kicker. Not much chance I'm going to win this at this stage, I'm feeling. And ace on the river, I'm just betting a sort of fairly pathetic 20 trying to block him, and that doesn't work. But honestly I think he's betting there because he's got something half decent. Alright, 3-2 against a tight but sort of a guy that's a tight play, but one that seems fairly spewy post flop, I'm still going to play everything I can. I think any two cards sort of positive EV if you can limp with them, i.e. you're not going to get punished by a raise from the big blind. Alright, he bets pot here. That's a little bit different to those over bets that he's been making, so I'm going to give him credit there for a hand. We get ace-ace, yippee, and he folds. Joy. 2-2, raises 3x. I'm always calling on this for the set value. If I catch, I can bust him. And he bets, what's that? Just a little bit under half pot. And I think, no future for me there. King 9 suited. And we hit middle pair. I bet, and he comes over the top. Now I have to think, I've got a decent kicker. Is an ace possibly in his range? And I think it is very possible that he's got an ace here. The second thing is, how often has he sort of 3-bet me? Not very often. So once again, it's a marginal spot, and he might be sort of bluffing me, but considering it's a marginal spot, I'll probably just pass and look for a better place to get my chips in. Alright, and even though this is a horrible board to bluff, once he checks, I just have a pop at it and take it down, and that's a handy pot to get. Alright, we've got the sort of gut shot. We can hit the queen here. We bet and take it down. And we trade folds. Here I've hit bottom pair. And he bets. Once again I call, hoping I can push him off on the turn. But 125 into the 160 pot, I'm now going to have to give up on that plan. So I really wasn't calling so much because I had bottom pair, but simply because I figured I could probably push him off and I had position, but it didn't work out. Alright, queen queen, and he folds again. He's folded on my ace ace and my queen queen. Nice. Alright, here we've got our ace queen. Didn't raise pre-flop. Probably could have taken down the pot if I did. Now he bets on the turn. Probably weak, but no hand, no draw, small pot. I'll just look for a better spot. And I raise my ace-9 there just to take the easy pot. Alright, here bets 50 into a 60 pot. It's not an overbet. I'll just give it up. And he might be stealing some of these pots with these bets. It's hard to know at this stage. And once again he raises me. At this stage I really feel like I'm getting run over in this match. Down to 1150, and every time I bet he sort of 3-bets me. And honestly, I'm just going to see how things go, but if this keeps up, I'm going to have to increase my aggression level, I think, to stop myself getting run over. Alright, 2 pair, that's beautiful. And he folds. So not only is he coming over the top when I'm weak, but he's folding whenever I'm strong. So basically some nice timing on his behalf. Alright, jack queen suited. I raise, pick up the pot pre-flop. Here we've got 9-5. I try that trick again, and I might have done it one too many times. But this is a pretty good board for me to have a go at. And I bet 160, crossing my fingers that he's going to fold. Against an aggressive guy, he'd nearly always be raising me here just because he figures that it's unlikely that I've hit. And if I did have the queen, I'd probably play it a lot more slowly. But luckily he's tight enough and I could get away with that. Alright, 60 into the 80 pot, and I think when I was playing this match I was too tabling. I wasn't really paying that much attention, but now I look at it in hindsight, I think he's really taking advantage of me, and I should have been 3-betting him a lot earlier. Alright, ace-2. And I check, and bang, he bets out nearly pot again. He's done this over and over again, and I must have been really asleep not to start sort of 3-betting this guy earlier. And the 8 on the turn is pretty much a horrible card for me. If he's called on anything, he's a long way ahead. He checks it, I check it, and then he fires out. Even 40 I can't really call here, I don't think. Alright, here I've got a gut shot, an overcard, and he bangs out again. I'm sure he's buying a lot of pots. Not much I can do at this stage. And there he comes over the top of me, and this time he checked raised me. I'm just getting run over here. It's pretty awful. As I say, in hindsight, I'm sure I should have been more aggressive earlier. Right, he flattered me, and he's checking it, and he comes up with ace king. So, fairly unpredictable. Never put him on that hand, that's for sure. We're down to less than 1,000, and he's just running all over the top of me. Every time I bet, he 3-bets me, or it feels like that whenever I've got something. He folds. Nothing's working. And this is interesting. I think what he's doing is sort of betting when he doesn't have it and trapping when he does. But I haven't really woken up to that yet, and bang, he's caught me. I'm down to 570, and things are going quite horribly. But the good thing is now we get to have a look at, sort of the way that I would play when I'm low stacked, which is still try and steal boards if I can, still try and stay reasonably aggressive and not panic and start shoving. I know I'm down to just a little bit over 10 big blinds, but I'm going to try and stay calm. I think in a lot of the videos you've seen me in spots like this where I'm low stacked, but as I've always said, I'm not going to panic. I'm just going to wait for the right spot. Alright, bottom pair, definitely attack here, and luckily we take that one down. Funny thing is, he seems to get a little bit more conservative now I'm low stacked. Maybe he doesn't want to double me up. Alright, he can take that one. He raises, and I'm going to call a min raise, even though I'm fairly shallow stacked. Hope to hit a nice flop, and don't. I'm not going to try bluff here. 470, not going to panic. Even ace 7, I just limp with it, and he raises me to 200. I'm sure that 99% of people would be shipping this in, but I'm just going to be patient and wait for the spot. It will come, I'm sure. Alright, I try and steal another one, pick it up, that's nice. Finally, we have a decent starting hand. Ace Queen. Now the question is, how am I going to play it? If I shove, he's probably going to get an easy fold, not much value. If I min raise or 3x, I think he'll probably fold with 3x. If I min raise and I miss the flop, I've then got, there's 200 in the pot. I've only got about 400 behind. I'm probably going to have to do a go and go, and I really don't like that play. I'm going to cross my fingers and limp. And finally something beautiful happens. He gets out of line and I can shove over the top. Alright, got him in dominated. And with 3 clubs and a queen on the flop, I'm feeling pretty comfortable. Alright, nice. Back up to 890. Back in the game. And as I've said before, we never panicked. We just waited for the right spot. Could have shoved on that a7 hand and I might well have lost the match there. But we're back in it. Alright, I'm going to keep on stabbing at these pots. He seems to have lowered his 3-bet frequency. Maybe he was hitting a lot of good hands. Alright, once again we've hit. He flats us. 3 on the turn. And he checks. I'm going to check behind. And now the 10. That's probably a good card for me. It reduces the chances of him having a 10. He might well have 3-bet me straight up with the queen. So there's a good chance I could be ahead. There's also a lot of draws on this board. He bets 150 into the 200 pot. And as I said, less chance that he's got a 10. He might well have 3-bet me with the queen straight away. So I'm going to put him on a draw or a worse 5. And I'm going to call him. And he did have the diamond draw. That's nice. And I've gone from desperate to up to 1200. I'm feeling happy now. Alright, and even though I haven't played this guy brilliantly so far, I'm now going to sort of pick up my game, sort of, get my stuff together, because I realise that when he's donking out, he's sort of, he's taking the mickey out of me, so I'm going to be a bit more aggressive against him now. But not on this particular hand, which is horrible. Alright, King Queen suited. I raise to try and take the blinds, and he folds. And Ace 8, he checks, and I'm going to try and take that down. And here we come to one of the more interesting hands. He immediately bets, and I think that it's unlikely he's got much here. I now have to think, what's the best line to take the pot off him? If I raise straight away, that might take it down. It might also seem like a bluff. A lot of players will think the immediate raise is a bluff. I've obviously got the flush draw. I think what I'll do is just call one and see what comes on the turn, but I'm certainly going to try and take this pot off him. Alright, the 4 on the turn, and he bets 120, but honestly I don't believe him. I think he's full of it, and the question is how best to take the pot down. I could raise him pot, which may work. I could min raise, which would be the strongest action. When you think about it, if you had a jack here, if you weren't too worried about the flush, you'd probably just min raise and try and get more chips in. So the min raise would actually seem like a stronger action and more plausible for someone that had a jack, and that's what I'm going to try. I just min raise in the 240. He folds it up, and I think we're technically in the lead. Alright, here comes the next hand where I think I outplay him. He bets 90 here, and my instinct is, so far this has been sort of not really strength. I flat call, and he checks on the river, so I'm quite convinced that it's not strength. At best he's got a 7. Bet 120 to try and take it, and he calls me, and I wouldn't be surprised also if he had some sort of draw. Something like 7-6. The pot's quite big. I was hoping to take it down there. I was also hoping I might hit my 10, or even my jack, which I think would give me the hand. And 5 on the river. Now I really have to sort of put my money where my mouth is. The 5 on the river is a good card because obviously, it gives me a chance to sort of represent the full house if he has caught some sort of straight. The question is, can I fold out a 7? Should I give up on this board? I've only got jack high. He checks, and one thing about bluffing is it's got to be a decent sized bet if you want the other guy to fold. No point me bluffing like 150 or get looked up by a 7 every time there. So I'm going to smack 540 into the pot, which is probably what I'd do if I had an 8. And he sat and thought about this and timed right down, making me think that perhaps he did have a 7. But luckily I played a pretty plausible line on this, the sort of line you would play if you had an 8. And he folds it up, thank goodness. Alright, so now we're in the lead. We've chopped another leg off him. All we have to do is lean on him. Alright, not folding there. And now that he bets 175, he's firing a second barrel. I'll give it up. Not convinced that he had a good hand there, but we'll move on and look for a better spot. Alright, we took that pot down with a bet, which was nice. I have a feeling that he's two-barreling me quite a lot. Just from some of the times where he's fired that sort of large second barrel when I've just flat called him. Alright, we try and take the pot down and do, so we've got a nice source of chips there. Here he min raises. Obviously I'm going to call on ace 2 suited, and we hit a 2 on the flop. He bets 200, and this is not the sort of flop he's going to hit. There's two options here. Number one, he's got some sort of overcards, ace king or whatever, and option number two is he's got a pair. I don't really think he's got the pair. And here he fires the second barrel, 340. He's only got 490 behind, but my instinct says that he's got overcards and I can maybe represent the 5 by shoving, which I do. And he folds and he's down to 410. So we kind of, what's the right word? We noticed that he was being pretty spewy in firing those second barrels, and also that he had a fold button, and took advantage of that. We kind of bluffed him, I think, certainly on the 8877 board, sorry, the 88755 board, we bluffed him, and there was another board where we possibly bluffed him, where we had the flush draw on the ace jack jack board, and right there, possibly we bluffed him or we were good, I'm not sure, but we certainly put him under a lot of pressure and made him fold. So 3 hands where we finally managed to outplay someone, perhaps. Alright, continue to attack, and he folds, which he's done quite a lot. Ace 3, I'm going to shove. Against tight players, you have to be careful about shoving. One of my theories is that if they're letting you limp and not being too aggressive from the big blind, then shoving is actually bad because you'll force them into calling where you might have picked up the pot post flop. But this guy is just aggressive enough post flop where I don't think I want to put myself into too many post flop situations. Queen 9, he's down to 250 and I'm shoving. Ace 80 calls and I miss, fair enough, he's up to 500. It seems like he's a bit of a bully in the sense that he was pretty active when he was ahead, and now that he's not ahead, or whenever I started catching up, the wind really went out of his sails and he slowed right down. Right, he limps, firing out there. If he had have shoved me, I don't know if I would have called or not. I mean, I'm probably 25% if he shoves, so it's possibly worth taking the risk. Alright, here we catch the nuts, and he shoves out of desperation. Obviously I'm happy to call that. King on the river, which gave me a bit of a fright. Now he's got the jack out, but he misses. And that's the end of the match. So, obviously, it took me a long time to adjust and finally start sort of being aggressive with this guy. I was kind of hoping that I was going to catch something and get him then, but he had pretty good timing, folding on my queens, folding on my aces and so on, and I didn't hit many boards. But eventually we sort of cottoned on that he was perhaps two-barreling us and, bluffing some of those boards that appeared more bluffable, and we took advantage of that knowledge and outplayed him. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Until next time, good luck on the tables, and I hope you run good.